we're sliding the strategic plan presentation up because we have our friends, I think, on the virtual world waiting to dial in. So,
yeah, I'll let Greg get us ready,
okay.
but I believe we have Ronnie and Dana and probably some other friends with us. And they're going to lead tonight's conversation through the unveiling of our strategic plan. This has been just about 12 months of work with heavy levels of community engagement and surveys and focus groups and individual meetings and committee work. This has been a really engaging process for our school community. Our community is well-versed in strategic planning for many, many, many decades. Our strategic plan was last updated around 2015, 2016, and we were ready to launch it again, and then Indian Point happened. And we were ready to launch after confronting the challenges of Indian Point and the pandemic. That it was time, as we were reopening schools last year, to re-engage with our strategic plan. And the opportunity that a strategic plan poses is to really re-engage with your community. Families, taxpayers, residents, particularly those that don't have children, and then we'll be rolling this out to staff in various ways. So, are we here? All right. Is this the? Oh, this is the video. So we rolled out a sort of a promotional video earlier this week to give our community an idea of what the strategic plan is. A quick overview of the 4 pillars. We have some movie stars among us. Our school board vice president, because our school board president was not available, so that was a task for the vice president and a couple other members of our various committees and staff. So if you haven't seen it, we're all going to see it right now, and I'm going to look away because there's nothing worse than listening, seeing, or hearing yourself on a video. So go ahead.
Hello, Hendrick Hudson community. I'm Superintendent Joseph Hochreiter, and I'm excited and privileged to share with you our strategic plan. Our school community has deep roots in strategic planning. It sets a pathway for change and innovation. It sets a pathway for us to make sure that students' needs are being met and that we're preparing students for an ever-changing world and workforce beyond graduation. Our strategic plan began last year. It involved parents, community members, students, and teachers. There were interviews and surveys and focus groups to identify our strengths and identify opportunities for improvement. That work has culminated in what we're about to share and focus on for the next 5 years. Our 4 priority areas or pillars will help continue to make Hendrick Hudson a school of choice and a destination school district. We're proud of our work, and we're really excited to share it with you. Hendrick Hudson has experienced some great change over the last number of years. It started with the Indian Point power plant's closure and a lot of conversation with our elected officials to make sure that we were not economically harmed. And then came the pandemic, the likes of something that public education has never experienced. But in both instances, our stakeholders and community members rallied together to make sure our students were not negatively impacted and that our instructional programs remained top-notch.
I feel the strategic planning process is important because it provides the district with a framework to really institute change. It gives a common language for all of us, and it's also very important for me because I was able to get a lot of feedback from stakeholders that weren't just employees or members in the district. I got to speak to community members, students, and it was really eye-opening, and it really allowed us to make sure that all stakeholders' voices were heard. And I look forward to how that change or the pillars that came from that are going to help move the district forward and provide our students with the skills that they need to be successful.
I'm excited to be part of the strategic plan process because it allows stakeholders to be directly engaged with our district administration as we plan and prioritize projects for our students' future.
Our strategic plan is divided into 4 focus areas. These focus areas were the result of stakeholder input and our opportunity to improve our operations. The first is around student engagement. Our focus is to differentiate academic opportunities for all of our children, including our pre-K learners. We're going to focus on holistic growth, increasing student empowerment, advocacy, and independence. Our second pillar focuses on real-world experiences. This includes increasing cultural experiences in all of our classrooms, providing multiple pathways through learning opportunities and course offerings, and embedding real-world skills into the student experience in Hendrick Hudson. Our third pillar is focused on community cohesion, specifically clear and targeted communication. We're going to continue to improve our website and all of our external communications so all stakeholders are acutely aware of all of the happenings in the Hendrick Hudson school community. We're going to increase access, visibility, and information between the school district and all stakeholders, especially those that no longer have children in our school community. And lastly, our fourth pillar is around community cohesion and shared decision-making. We'll focus on making community involvement a specific task in decision-making processes in the district. We'll continue to expand opportunities to develop stakeholder leadership competencies and engage with stakeholders, and we'll make sure that diversity, equity, and inclusion is embedded with all of our decisions.
I think the Hen Hud School District Strategic Plan will be really great for the community because it shows that not only does the district offer strong academic education for all students, but also that they're looking to flex and expand what they're offering for students so that they're all successful in the future, whether it's learning how to become a better leader, understanding a little bit more about the world we live in, or exploring careers. I think this is a nice addition, and I think the community will find this beneficial to understand all this.
Thank you for taking this journey with us. We are extremely proud of our children and our staff and the outcomes that we've been able to achieve because of your support. We're really excited about the future of our district and hope that you find an opportunity to become involved or make sure that you stay connected to this important work. Thank you.
One hand high! One hand high! One hand high!
Okay, and with that, we'll welcome our strategic plan facilitators who have led this journey with us, and I'd be remiss if I didn't share with the community that they spent a hot day in July with our school board. We're doing our strategic plan and helping identify priorities and our next steps. So I know Greg's going to welcome them virtually, and then we'll turn it over to them.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. My name is Dana Britt, and I'm here with my colleague, Ronnie Bunjarian. We are from the organization Education Elements, and we have had the honor and the pleasure to facilitate your district's strategic plan. It's hard to go after that video, getting a chance to hear directly from some of the members who were a part of this process, but we're hoping to share a few updates and how you all can be involved in this process, a little bit more about how you can get your hands on a copy of the plan, look at the plan, and a little bit more about how we got here, just in case you haven't had the opportunity to attend one of our previous board meetings where we shared updates. As we get our slides up, just in case you haven't met us before, my name, as I mentioned, is Dana. I am based in Maryland. I'm a former teacher and district administrator in the DC area, and I've been supporting districts with Education Elements for the past almost 7 years, primarily in the state of New York, where we support over 50 districts. So I'll pass it over to my colleague, Ronnie, to share a little bit more about himself.
Thank you, Dana. Good evening, everybody. My name is Ronnie Bunjarian. I'm based out of Nashville, Tennessee. And this will be, and I'm very grateful for this fact that this will be my third year supporting Hendrick Hudson. The first year, we did a round of community engagement, and then last year was the strategic planning year 0, bringing all of the community together to put together this plan and going into this year, this first year of implementation. So I'm very excited about the prospect to be working alongside you all, going into this year.
Great, thank you both. We're working on some technical issues. So Dana and Ron, if you could just hang on for a second. We're getting organized on our touch screen here. Here we are.
Sure thing.
I have to look at it in a different way.
Okay.
Okay. Dana or Ronnie, do you want to walk us through? We're looking at a couple of the slides in terms of your involvement with districts across the country, and particularly in New York State. If you want to, oh, here we are.
Yep, we got it. Hashtag one hen HUD.
Did Google Slides. I just want to let them know it's the most current version of the slides. Okay.
Oh, no problem, Greg. If you want to take us to the third slide, just to give folks, if you haven't had an opportunity to meet, we have a couple other team members and even a few who aren't on this screen who've been a part of the process. But as we are going to continue to work with your district this year, we wanted to make sure that you were able to see the faces of those that you may engage with in one of the focus groups or one of the other opportunities that we have to hear from you as we move forward the implementation of the strategic plan. The next slide here is just sharing a little bit more about Education Elements as an organization. We've been an organization since 2010 and have supported districts all over the country in areas from strategic planning to leadership development to personalizing learning. But we are very proud to have partnered with the Hendrick-Hudson School District now, as Ronnie mentioned, for the past almost 3 years. And the next slide just shares a little bit more about our impact in New York. And in particular, you can see some of the local districts that are near you all that we've also been able to partner with in various initiatives. And with that, I will pass it to Ronnie. He's going to share a bit more about how we got here, just in case you weren't a part of one of our previous sessions, who's been involved, a little bit more about the pillars. And the big reveal will be sharing more about the strategic plan document, both the PDF document and, as you'll hear, the dashboard, where you'll be able to, in the moment, go in and see what everyone is working on in terms of the strategic plan.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dana. With all of this text that's on your screen right now, or if you're watching the live stream, or if you're watching the recording, we won't go through each one of these items, but suffice to say that this truly was a labor of love, and there was so much work that was done in the fall of last year when we did our first round of stakeholder engagement. We came on site in December and met the steering team in person for the first time, and we cross-sectioned the data from the stakeholder engagement, from the community survey and the focus groups, every which way, in order for us to understand what the priority areas for the district are going to be. So early this past year, we helped you all identify the mission and vision and values and the priority areas of the district. And then in April, we came back in person and started working with the planning teams. And each of those planning teams was in charge of one of these key priority areas, which, as Superintendent Hawkrider said in the video, what we're calling the pillars. You have a chance to see them much more deeply in the next couple of slides. And then we spent really the time that we spent away from you all over the summer, we spent finalizing all of the stuff, all of the materials, the design of the plan, the accessibility and the language that's in the plan. And we're really happy that we're now at the end of this road in this first year, officially launching the plan. On the next slide, we wanted to remind everybody of the teaming structure last year and just reiterate that this is similar to the teaming structure this year. So if you're out there and you want to be involved, these are the sorts of teams that you can be involved with. The project team is consisting of a few district leaders, as well as this year, the board VP and the president as well. And then we have the steering team, followed by 4 planning teams that were each in charge of each of the pillars. On the next slide, and you'll see this on the website once the website becomes live, we wanted to just name drop all of these wonderful people that spent so much time took so much time out of the past year in being involved and putting all of these materials and putting all of their ideas together. I heard yesterday or maybe the day before from one of the parents that we worked with, the quote was something like, "We spent so many nights sitting around a kitchen table, just brainstorming and putting all of our ideas together." And there are so many unspoken for hours here that have poured into making this strategic plan a reality. And so just take a moment to take a look at some of these names, and really also very importantly want to highlight that under the first three pillars where you see in parentheses HS and MS, those were actually students. So we did have some student representation from the high school level and from the middle school level sitting on these teams as well. On the next slide, we wanted to remind everybody of the anatomy of a strategic plan. So what is a strategic plan? These are all the pieces that you'll see playing out today and over the course of the next 5 years. Starting at the very top, the roof of this house or structure, and moving all the way down to the foundation, we start at the mission and vision and beliefs and focus areas, thinking of those first 4 levels as the strategic direction. And then moving further along down the structure, thinking about what we need to do in order to achieve our goals, the objectives of the plan. And then and on the very last level in green, the explicit, discrete actions and projects and key performance indicators that actually go into making this plan a reality. And finally, on the next slide, before the big reveal, I wanted to remind everybody that the 4 pillars of the strategic plan, like was mentioned in the video, are these 4: student engagement, real-world experiences, clear and targeted communications, and shared decision-making. And importantly, it's interesting to note that the first 2 pillars kind of come together as a theme, thinking about this idea of well-rounded learners. These are the student-centered pillars. And the second 2 pillars, the theme is community cohesion, and these are the community-centered pillars. And now for the big reveal, I will say that as soon as this presentation is over, there will be a new landing page on the website, on the district website, called Strategic Plan, and there will be directions on how to access all of these materials. These materials are now yours, so they are fully and publicly available, accessible on the website, or maybe shortly after the end of this meeting. There are 2 key resources that combine together as the strategic plan. The first on the left is what we're calling the strategic direction, which is in a sense, what you might imagine a strategic plan would look like. It is a 10-page document that you can download. You can look at electronically or download as a PDF, and it basically codifies the strategic direction and priority areas of the district over the next 5 years. That has in it very explicitly stated the mission, vision, values, the priority areas, those pillars, and some strategies aligned to each of those pillars. But we understand that the limitations of a document like that is that it's static, those are things we said we would do in school year 22-23. But by the time we get to school year 26-27, so many things might have changed. And so we understand that that is not enough as part of a comprehensive strategic plan. And so what we've also supported in developing is what we're calling the implementation dashboard, which is a public-facing document that serves to track the progress towards the goals that are articulated in the plan. Both of these things are fully accessible to the public, and they will be fully accessible to you on the district website, like I said, either now or shortly after this presentation is over. Over the next couple of slides, I'm going to walk you through very briefly how you can use these documents and hopefully preempt some of the questions that you might have even before you access these documents. So the first thing I want to point to is how to read the strategic plan PDF document, you'll see that there is, some front matter when you open the PDF. There's a letter from Superintendent Hochreiter to the entire community. There's a table of contents. There's this articulation of the mission and vision and values of the district. And then there are a few pages that kind of look like the one that's on the screen right now that fully articulate each of the pillars. So for example, the page that we have up here is Pillar 1, Student Engagement. You'll see the name of the pillar on the top, and then you'll see for each pillar, there are 3 primary initiatives that have been identified from last year. In this case, it's 1A, 1B, and 1C. And there is a brief description about what each of these initiatives hopes to accomplish over the next 5 years. On the next slide, I wanted to very briefly walk you through what you'll see when you go into the implementation dashboard. It is a Google Sheet, but you don't actually need a Google account to access it. So anybody that clicks on the link will be able to go into the sheet. And there are several tabs at the bottom. The first tab is called How to Use This Document, and it basically outlines all of the information that you'll see throughout the rest of the tabs that are in the document. Following, there's a tab that we're calling a glossary of terms that basically has a list of names of projects or acronyms or terminology that might be used in the plan that are or potentially pertain to particular projects or ideas in the world of K-12 education that might need a little bit more description as to, well, how does this pertain to my child or my student at HenHUD? So we have a list of glossary items on that tab. And following that, what you'll see in the screenshot here on the right is just a full list of all of the discrete initiatives that the teams articulated. Hey, these are the things that we want to accomplish over the next 5 years. But then following that, there are 3 tabs that basically filter that full list into the 3 phases of work. And the 3 phases of work that we are considering in our work together, the first one is called implementation. And so those are projects or things or ideas that are either currently being implemented by the district or that we anticipate are going to be implemented within the first year, so school year 22-23. The projects that are in discovery phase are projects that we think are going to be, and we hope, going to be piloted in this first year. So piloted on a small scale, not full scale implementation. And finally, the projects that are in research phase are those projects that we're not quite ready to implement just yet, but which require more research, data gathering, planning, and assessment. And so the idea here is that this is a dynamic document that our teams are constantly, as the work gets started, that we are constantly coming in, updating and providing status updates and progress towards each of these goals. On the next slide, I wanted to briefly show you how these 2 documents talk to each other and how they map onto each other. So you'll see on the top, if you're looking for example, if we're looking at the student engagement pillar, you'll see that those are tagged as a column, rows in the column under the column pillar. And then you'll see, for example, initiative 1B, and those will be individual rows or discrete items or actions that are aligned to that specific initiative. In this case, 1B is focusing on holistic growth. And so hopefully over the course of these past few slides, and hopefully you'll have a chance to take a look at these materials tonight, and then in the future, hopefully we've elucidated a little bit about how you might use these 2 documents in tandem together as a member of the Hendrick-Hudson community. On the next slide, the final thing I want to share is that you will expect to see some upgrades to this dashboard as the work kicks off and as the implementation teams begin to actually implement the work. And so over the course of the next 2 months, before the end of the calendar year, you'll see that there will be 3 additional columns at least that are added to the dashboard. And each of these columns will speak to a particular tier of metric. It's one thing to say, hey, we are implementing this thing. It's another thing to say, especially for someone who is not involved in this process at all. It's another thing to say, how are we on track to meeting the goals that we set out for this particular project? How are we measuring if we are on track to meeting these goals? And in order to do so, we have crafted 3 tiers of metrics, and I'm going to walk you through them very briefly. We're calling them fidelity, effectiveness, and impact metrics. A fidelity metric is basically a measure of, did we do the thing? So if the thing was differentiated professional development for staff at the high school, that's as an example. The fidelity metric would be, did we do this thing? Did we administer this professional development? The effectiveness metric then is, was this thing successful? And the impact metric is, did doing this thing yield the long-term impact that we wanted? And you can think of these 3 tiers of metrics as sort of on a time axis, sort of like a very short-term, mid-term, and long-term metrics. And we have drafted all of these metrics. We have drafts of these that are ready to go, but we did want to clear these we wanted to make sure that all of the people that are going to actively be involved in this work, school admin, teachers and staff, especially for those first 2 pillars that are directly impacting students. We wanted to make sure that they were the right metrics for the right increments of time. And so, like I said, over the course of the next 2 months, you'll see that we'll add these metrics to the implementation dashboard, but you will currently have access to the dashboard as I described it in the few slides that preceded this slide. I'm going to pass it off to Dana to talk a little bit about looking ahead, some milestones over the next couple of months, and then also how you can be involved. If you haven't been involved before, if you want to be involved to a great amount or a little bit, Dana's going to walk you through all of that.
Yes. So this month, November, well, I guess that's next month, November, we are considering it Community Engagement Month. So there are going to be a lot of different opportunities for you to be involved. If you remember last year, there was a community-wide survey that was administered. We're going to administer the same survey to be able to compare the results. So that's one way that you can have your voice heard in this process. We're also going to be recruiting teams. So if you'd like to be a part of one of the teams as well, and I'll speak a bit more to that in a moment. On November 29th, as Ronnie alluded to, we'll be meeting with the leadership team, particularly the school administrators, to make sure that they have a deep understanding of the plan and to start to think about how they are going to implement with their teachers and staff, and to also recruit them to be a part of the teams. And then if you choose to be a part of either the steering or one of the implementation teams, we'll have a virtual kickoff in mid-December, leading up to our big first on-site in the January, when we will take a look at community engagement and we will determine next steps and really dive deep. If that dashboard was exciting to you and you really want to know what the metrics are, then that might be an opportunity for you to join one of those teams who will be crafting and moving forward the work with those metrics. So as we've mentioned on the next slide, just goes through the 3 opportunities that you have. So you can sign up to join one of the teams, you can attend a focus group or a one-on-one interview, and you can also take the community-wide survey. And all of those links and the information about how to do all of those things will be coming out on the website. They're going to be hopefully a postcard mailer in the mail to you all as well as information in the newsletter. So we are just really thrilled about this plan and excited to have you all to continue to share your input of your ideas for the mission, vision, values, how we can get there together. With that, we wanted to pass it over to the board trustees if there were any questions.
Thank you guys so much. Do any of the trustees have any questions for the team?
I have 2 questions. One is, well, first of all, thank you for doing this, and a big thank you to all the community members involved in getting us here. I know I was one of them, and it was a very fulfilling experience, and I'm really looking forward to doing this work to get us into the next phase. I'm just looking at this and wondering, we're opening this tonight, for access to the community, how do parents, community members, even students send questions? Who should they send questions to or comments to as they review the dashboard? Yeah.
There's information somewhere. Dana or Ronnie, do you want to explain that there will be contact information for folks?
Yes, so the hope is that in the dashboard, there will be a column that for every initiative will have an owner and a contact information. So if there's a specific initiative that you're hoping to give feedback on, we're hoping that you all will give feedback through the survey and through the focus groups and through that process. But if you are really excited and right away want to give feedback, we always would be happy to receive it. You can send it to Ronnie at elements.com, RANI, and he would be happy to read it. And I would too, Dana at elements.com, but Ronnie is your go-to person.
I will be happy and thrilled to read it.
Great. And then the other question is, as this is a living document, who has access to editing it as we move forward?
Great question. As of now, the owners of the document are our project team, which is the Education Elements team, and the district admin with our 2 board trustee team members. And I believe we are planning to keep it at that point where the project team is the key updaters, but we will also have the opportunity for the facilitators or the leads of each of the implementation teams to come to our project team meeting. We're hoping about once per month, and to be able to update through that process as well. So if there are suggestions, if we think maybe that those facilitators should be able to also access it and edit, then we could also go that direction.
And I have just one other comment. We do a good job. We get the community. We're usually reaching out to parents, and are we identifying the staff directly? Are we going to send a direct targeted email to them for recruitment and involvement?
Yeah, Ronnie, do you want to share, or Superintendent Hawkrider?
Yeah, it's basically same process we used last year, description of, the communication will be different this year because we have a document to show, and people will be able to sign up or identify interest based on particular interest now that we have our 4 pillars. We're also, as Dana alluded to, having a day-long retreat after Thanksgiving with our administrative team to ask that exact question too. Who else, needs to be a part of this, and how do we recruit them specifically, whether it's grade level leaders or department chairs, or anyone. So we'll have a better idea when we get into some of the specific tasks of folks that we would want to reach out to. But I don't believe, Dana and Ronnie, when we put the all call out last year, I don't believe we turned anyone away who wanted to participate, correct?
Correct.
And then the other question here, because the whole first 2 pillars are really about students. So at what point do we, instead of us internally picking students we think might be interested, do we just push it out to the students or student groups to get their involvement and their engagement?
I think we're going to have to further explore that. One of the, if you remember, Erica, one of our concerns last year was that the level of participation we had was not emblematic of our district demographics. And so while we asked people to identify themselves to participate, we also did some active recruitment.
Mm-hmm.
So we may need to do that again. I'll let Dana and Ronnie sort of explore that a little bit, but that was one of the hiccups last year. Was we wanted to be very open and transparent, and whoever wanted to have a seat at any initiative could. But as our demographics shift, we wanted to make sure that the voices were representative, and they weren't initially. But I'll let Dana and Ronnie expand on that.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. But in addition to that, Erica, I think you were asking specifically about recruiting students, right?
Yes.
Yeah. We last year, kind of behind the scenes before the students arrived at the planning teams, we were interfacing with, the school counselors and I think at the high school, it was the director of the student government or the advisor of the student government. And we actually did end up having a pretty diverse pool of students that were really interested, and those winnowed down a little bit by the time that they actually showed up to those planning team meetings. But we're hoping in terms of recruiting students again this year, we're hoping to take a similar approach. However, we are open to other approaches, especially if you think that it would behoove us to cast a wider net and recruit even more students than we did last year.
Yeah, I think that's important. So something to note.
How many implementation topics, how many of the dashboard items are highlighted as implementation for this year out of all of them? Do you know of him?
I think I can get that number for you. We currently have 17 discrete rows that are that have been tagged implementation. But I want to highlight again that that designation came after so many months of looking at all of the project canvases and all of the work that was done in planning teams, and with our project team understanding and articulating, hey, these things are already happening, but we want to expand them. Or this feels very feasible, low cost. And so this feels like a low hanging fruit that could be implemented. But as we start off this work again this year, it could change. That list of 17 could end up being 20, or it could go down to 13 or 14. And that is, as folks that are actively going to get their hands in this work, especially if they're teachers and staff and school admin, if they realize that there are certain limitations that maybe as we were giving these our best guesses, then that's the beauty of this tool, is that we can say, okay, we're not ready to implement. We're gonna just pilot it. We're gonna put it back in discovery phase. And we're gonna implement it in the next school year. But that was a very long-winded way to answer your question, which is 17 projects that are tagged implementation.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess once you get to your next meeting with the steering committee, is that sort of where you'll 17 seems like a lot, and I'm sure they're all important, but it does concern me. It's thinking if like each of them need a working group, just hope that we get, we need to get a lot of participation if we want a diverse working group for each of those topics. And so I guess when we go back to the steering committee, just keep in mind, like I'm asking the steering committee, just keep in mind, like 17 seems like a far reach for 1 year.
Yeah.
But maybe easy.
That does, to clarify, we would have the 4 main implementation teams, and then within that, there may be certain people who might focus on one area or another. Others of them, I think, might not even have a working team. They might be so discrete that there's something that a building leader might be able to take it on, or a district staff might be able to take it on and move that work forward. So I know it does sound like quite a lot of items, but in choosing those, the project team last year felt that so many of them were already in implementation that they wanted to honor that, all of the work that teachers and staff and the district team were already building towards.
Got it. Okay, that sounds good.
Do we know the cost of implementing those 17?
No, when you see this and you look at the whole chart, there's like really big tasks, and then there's really, really small tasks that would have no cost at all. So I don't think that there's been a financial analysis on any of them. I don't think. Am I wrong? Okay. So I think as they would push forward, it'd be right.
For example, one of the one of the interests was exploring redesigning our website, right? So is that we would explore whether or not there's a cost to redesigning our website if we went with a new company, so on and so forth, because we pay a company to host our website. If we want to overhaul our website, we would have to find out, well, we would have to identify additional companies, what the timeline would be, even before we get that far, what the end product would look like, other school districts that use different companies, and then speak with those companies, or in this case, BOCES provides a lot of our back-end tech support to identify whether this would be a new cost or would this be embedded in our service agreement that we have with them. That's just one example.
So we are out of the 17, do we have a dollar amount, what we can spend?
No, we're not
even there.
Yeah,
Okay.
right.
But there is time as we move forward with these 17 that the admin team could bring them to the budget committee and we can look and see how they fit it. There's definitely time.
Sure. You know, some of the initiatives, you know, and I'm forecasting here. So I'm not saying this is what's going to happen, but around real world experiences, last year that group was talking about more relevant electives for students and looking at what opportunities exist for students outside the 22 mandated credits that the student has to take in high school. So that may be a curriculum writing initiative and exploring other electives in other schools or internship programs or a lot of different things. Croton has a program for seniors where I don't know, most of May and all of June, they're doing internships or volunteering or those sort of things. So if that's one example that if that's a direction we go, we would have to spend some time to determine whether or not it's a new cost that will incur, or, and I had said this last year, whether or not we have to retire some initiatives, because what we don't want to do, and I hear what Jen's saying about 17 initiatives, we don't want to keep adding more things to the plate if we don't take some things off.
Right.
So it's not just about cost, I hear you, but it's also about bandwidth, right? And what we have heard in public education for at least the last decade is more and more is coming on in terms of mandates from the state, so on and so forth, and not much is coming off. We do not want to exacerbate that.
Right, but I think what you were trying to capture is, do we have time? We want to move forward with something next fall. Do we have time to capture it in this year's budget coming up?
Yes.
So, and we've got planned presentations, I think at least 4 more over the next couple of months, right, Joe? To hear updates and where we have to make decisions on the budget. So I think
yeah, that's one of the nice things about the dashboard. It creates transparency to sort of not poke around, but look in on that document to see progress over time and see what they're talking about and see what some of the initiatives might be.
And then I have one other question. Just we're working with Ed Allen's, who worked with them last year. Is there a cost? Is this all budgeted for the work with them? Is it within our budget? Is it?
Yeah, it's within our budget, and Enrique has worked with BOCES. It covers 2 fiscal years. So this fiscal year and then next. And one of the reasons we try to use BOCES as often as we can is we receive state aid. That's basically the incentive that New York State asks school districts to consider, whether it's back office functions or supplier equipment or even educational programs, to use BOCES as a hub for those opportunities. And that's actually how we met at Elements. And that was one of the priorities at the time, to make sure that they had a relationship with BOCES so that we could pay a fraction of the cost.
Should we share? We should just share that cost, right? Can we just share what that cost is to the district for this year, next?
Yeah, thank you. Actually, Joe and I discussed this a couple of weeks ago because there was not a substantial budget this year for this cost. The cost is $120,000 before state aid, before BOCES aid. So what I discussed with my counterpart in BOCES is that this year we are going to be paying around $20,000 for this cost, and the other $100,000 will come next year like that, we will be able to vote with the budget for next year. So the question that you asked me this afternoon about the Board of Education budget for next week, for next year, that's what I said. It's going to be substantially more than this year because of these $100,000 that will incur next year.
Okay.
However, so our friends are not upset that they are only getting $20,000 between now and June. BOCES is going to front the money on a monthly basis. So what we're going to be doing is owing money to BOCES so we can continue paying our friends on a monthly basis, but they are going to charge us $100,000 of the $120,000 next year.
I thought I saw that it was $225,000. Am I
Well, we're talking state aid and the out of pocket.
without seeing
Without state aid, our state aid ratio is 40 and 60.
40 and 60.
Okay.
So by having it be a BOCES service, we receive various state aid based on the service, tuition, staff development, some people we purchase through BOCES, and the state has a different calculation for.
So they charged us $225,000, but with state aid, we're only paying $120,000.
We'll have to look at the particulars between the 40 and 60, and our state aid's going up. One of the, I guess, intended
No, but this is BOCES.
benefits of
This is BOCES. BOCES. We're fighting with other districts, but we want to be friendly with the other districts. So if we go up, someone has to go down. So BOCES, the BOCES rate won't move that much, but again, between 40 and 60%. I don't know if in which of the 40 to 60 this falls in, but to make it simple, if it's 50% and it's 220, 110 will come back to us. We'll have to pay it, but will come back to us.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here tonight. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I will see our education elements friends again. We're going to have them coming back regularly throughout the school year to provide updates for our board and community as well.
Awesome. All right.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you.